you tell us TED extension? What is the, how many mesh is required? What is the mesh size here?
So for this is what we use in the U.S. This is the typical mesh size we use, and I know mesh size varies by fishery, and this can be adapted to fisheries. So this mesh size can be adjusted. This is what we use in the U.S. It's easy for training for construction because it's easier to sew bigger meshes than to sew smaller meshes. But for this one, we have 1 5/8 webbing, 1.6 inch webbing, and then there's 60 meshes of that here total, and then around we have 160 meshes around, and so that's what we install this in, and then we cut the hole depending on which flap we were going to put in on the device.
And what's the mesh size of this flap?
This flap is 1 5/8. This is poly webbing. That's what we typically use, is poly webbing. It's a plastic webbing, and it's a heat set depth stretch. So you can see it has spring to it. This is what we recommend, is to have a heat set depth stretch webbing for flat material. And the knots must be oriented in the proper way. We've trained the staff here at CIFT to identify the proper knot orientation to ensure a good flap seal.
Great. So we have conducted this workshop with the CIFT, Central Institute of Fisheries Technology experts, Fisheries Survey of India, FSI, and CIFNet scientists here to teach them how to construct a TED, and all these minute specifications were taught to them. Thereafter, in the second stage of the workshop, we brought in the net makers and fishermen from across India, in all the coastal states of India, right from Gujarat to West Bengal, and teach them how to do this. So the fish boat owners, leaders know about the TED, and the fishermen and the net makers also know about the TED, how to construct a TED properly. So the program, thank you very much for conducting that program, because it was a hands-on training program, and the participants were very happy that they could actually understand the significance of constructing TED as per the specifications prescribed by the US law. Now, we have conducted the TED field demonstrations also. We took all the trainees, especially the Department of Fisheries officials from the various state governments. Each state government has appointed a nodal officer, and then these nodal officer, along with the Fish Boat Owners Association representatives from each state, and in addition to that, we had Coast Guard and other enforcement agencies also to join us for the field demonstration. In 3 fishing boats we took them yesterday, and they were shown how the TED works, whether there is any catch loss or whether there is any difference in the quantity of the catch they get in the trawl when they use TED and without the TED. Can you tell your experience with our field demonstration with the fishermen?
We thought the demonstrations went well. One of the things that we really had to stress as part of the demonstration is the installation, that it was installed properly. The TED can either be installed straight up and down with this opening out the top of the net, or it can be turned around and installed with the opening going out the bottom of the net. And it's different applications if you're in a lot of trash or you're dragging up things like tires or debris, then the bottom opening may work better. But we installed as a top opening yesterday, but making sure that it was straight up and down and working with the people on the boat to make sure that everything was sewn on properly was critical. And when we did that, they saw that we made a tow with the TED and then a tow without, and there was negligible difference in the catch. That we had just as much shrimp with the TED installed as we did without the TED, with much less debris.
Yeah.
It's a lot cleaner and easier to work through on the deck.
And after the demonstration, the fishermen were saying that it is much easier to work with the TED because the debris is much less. So the time to segregate the catch is much less, labor required is much less. So fish boat workers are happy that they don't need to do a lot of work on the deck to segregate the catch. So that is
and much higher quality catch, because you don't have things in the net smashing the shrimp, or they're not sitting on deck waiting for you to sort them out. The quicker you can sort out and have your catch iced, the better quality product you'll have.
Yeah. Another question I have is, you have the double flap and the single flap used in the TED, and what's the difference? Which one is more ideal?
So both of these flaps can exclude the same size leatherback turtle. So this one is the double cover, and we came up with this one to work on smaller grids, because the other opening is a 71-inch opening, and this has a single flap. So when I say 71-inch, it must measure 71 inches up here.
Okay.
This flap only has to measure 56 inches up here, because it has the split.
Okay.
So it fits on a smaller grid than the 71.
Right. So what's the diameter of the grid, which is the most important part of the TED? What is the diameter and the size of the grid?
The minimum size grid you can use is a 32-inch by 32-inch grid. We recommend going slightly larger than that, 32 and a half, 33 inches. And so that size grid would be applicable to trawls that were 10 meters or less. And then the 10 to 20 meter size trawls, when I say 10 to 20 meter size, I mean that's the head rope length, is how we measure trawl nets. A mid-size grid that would be 40 inches tall by 34 inches wide, and then anything over 20 meters we would recommend a large grid, which would be one like this that was about 50 inches tall by about 40 inches wide. And you could arguably, you could make them larger. We have made them larger than that for larger nets, but these three sizes should fit any trawl that in India. You should be able to.
Yeah, that brings another question to my mind. One is that, we have hand trawls which are smaller in size, like less than 10 meter head rope length. Do we need to use a TED for the hand trawls, which is used in some states?
Okay, in the United States, if the trawl is hauled completely by hand with less than 5 crew, then no TED is required. And the logic behind that is that because it's hauled by hand, the tow times won't be long enough to kill a turtle. Yeah. So we don't require it on those small trawls.
And when we come to the mechanical trawls, we have mainly two categories of trawls in terms of head rope length. 30 meter below, 15 to 30 meter, head rope length trawls are there, or 30 meter above, probably up to 50 meter head rope length. Right. Two types of trawl nets are there. So what is your recommendation for the TED? What size of what grid size we need to use for these two kind? I will say big and small.
Right. So generally you want to use the biggest grid that you can handle for your trawl. Many fishermen, the logic is, I want the minimum device that I have to have, but when it comes to TED, that logic doesn't work. You need to have as much sorting area to sort as much as your catch to go through as possible. Yeah. So you want the biggest size TED that your net can handle. So we would recommend anything that was greater than 20 meters, I would recommend a large grid like this, which is a 50-inch grid. And then anything between 10 and 20, I would recommend a mid-size grid, which would be one that's slightly smaller than this, is 40 inches by 34. And then anything less than 10 meters, the 32-inch grid would fit.
Okay.